Mike Crusher Thompson was a big man with a rough look. His leather jacket, thick beard, and constant smirk made him look scary. A scar that crossed his left eyebrow and went down to his cheek, a reminder of a failed stunt back when he tried to make it as a stuntman, gave him an even more dangerous appearance. Every member of his biker gang respected their leader, who always had a new joke, a bold challenge, or a way to prove they were the toughest guys around. That day they rode into a small, quiet town, looking for a place to relax and have some fun. The sun was shining, the streets were peaceful. It was the perfect place to stir things up a bit. When they stopped their roaring motorcycles in front of a cozy cafe, people turned to look. The townspeople were used to calm, peaceful days, and a group of rough bikers was not what they expected to see. Mike looked around with a smirk. He liked getting attention, making people nervous, laughing loudly and showing that no one dared to mess with him. Then something caught his eye. Two well-groomed dogs were sitting calmly near the entrance to the cafe. One of them was a golden retriever with kind eyes, Buddy, and the other was a strong black and tan Doberman named Storm. Mike grinned. "Look at those pampered pets," he said, nudging his buddy with his elbow. "Looks like they're living better than we are." His crew laughed. One of the younger bikers, Jack, leaned over and whispered, "Boss, maybe we shouldn't. I heard Jason Statham is in town. He could be anywhere." "Who? That actor?" Mike laughed even louder. "I'm not scared of some useless Hollywood star." Without thinking much, he lifted his heavy boot and kicked the golden retriever in the side. Not hard enough to cause real harm, but enough to scare the dog. Buddy gave a surprised yelp and backed away, his eyes full of confusion. Storm jumped up right away, alert and ready to protect his friend. The street went silent. People in the cafe gasped. A waitress dropped her tray. The crash broke the silence. A child holding an ice cream cone squeezed it so hard the scoop fell to the ground. Mike laughed, pleased with himself. The whole gang laughed nervously, unsure if they should follow their leader's example. Jack mumbled that it was a bad idea. Inside the cafe, a man was quietly sitting at a window table. His face was strong and calm, showing little emotion, but his eyes said something else. He was enjoying a cup of tea when he heard his dog bark outside. His hand froze in the air, holding the cup. His eyes focused outside. It was Jason Statham, who had just seen some thug kick his buddy, causing the dog to step back, scared and confused. The cafe owner, an older man named Frank, turned pale when he realized what was about to happen. He quickly walked over to Statham's table and whispered, "Sir, I think that biker just made a huge mistake." Jason didn't say a word. He just stood up, his movements calm and controlled. When he took a step toward the door, people in the cafe looked at each other nervously. They knew who he was. They had seen his movies, heard about his fighting skills. Outside, the biker gang was still laughing, but their laughter was fading. One of the younger bikers nudged Mike with his elbow and whispered, "I think we should go." Mike frowned. "Go? Why? It was just a joke." But then the mood changed. A shadow moved across the sidewalk. A tall figure stepped out of the cafe, boots knocking slowly and steadily on the wooden boards. Jason Statham didn't take his calm but dangerous eyes off Mike. For the first time that day, Mike felt uneasy. He had been in fights before, but there was something different about this man. It was clear without words. This was not someone to mess with. Mike stood there, still smirking, but his smile was no longer so confident. Jason didn't charge at him, didn't shout, didn't threaten. He simply stepped forward. "I didn't mean anything by it, just having a little fun." Mike shifted from foot to foot, suddenly realizing that everyone was watching him now. Jason tilted his head, thinking over Mike's words, then stepped a bit closer. "You want to have fun?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "All right, let's have fun." Before Mike could react, Jason moved forward. It was fast, too fast. One moment Mike was standing tall, and the next he stumbled backward, completely off balance. Jason didn't need a hard hit, just one precise move with his foot to the knee, and Mike could no longer stay on his feet. Mike crashed to the ground with a loud thud, and his gang gasped in shock. The leader of the bikers, the toughest guy they knew, was suddenly lying in the dirt. Not so funny now, is it? Jason said quietly. Mike jumped back to his feet, his face red with embarrassment. He pulled on his jacket, took a deep breath, and looked at Jason. "All right, tough guy," he growled, stepping forward. "You think you can humiliate me like that and just walk away?" "Want to try again?" Jason asked in a calm, almost bored voice. Mike swung his fist, aiming straight for Jason's face. But before the punch could land, Jason moved. He easily stepped to the side, grabbed Mike's wrist, twisted it, and pulled forward, sending Mike crashing into a nearby wooden table. The table shattered, plates and cups flying everywhere. The gang stared in shock at their leader, now groaning on the ground. The cafe owner winced but didn't dare say a word. "Still fun?" Jason asked, tilting his head. Mike gritted his teeth and stood up again. His pride wouldn't let him back down, not in front of everyone. He charged at Jason, but Jason didn't even flinch. With one smooth step forward, Jason delivered a quick, precise strike to Mike's solar plexus, making him double over and gasp for air. Mike staggered back, choking, trying to breathe. His gang, seeing their leader being beaten, started slowly backing away. "You kicked my dog," Jason said calmly. "Now you know how it feels." Mike's heart was pounding. For the first time, he wasn't just embarrassed. He was scared. How could this happen? He'd been in many fights before, but Jason was fast, accurate, and completely in control. In a panic, Mike pulled a pocket knife from his jacket. He flipped it open and held it in front of him, breathing hard. The moment the blade appeared, the whole town gasped. Jason didn't even blink. Instead, he sighed and shook his head. "You really don't know when to stop, do you?" Mike clenched his jaw and lunged forward, aiming the knife at Jason's side. But Jason was faster. Again. Before Mike could finish the move, Jason's hand shot forward, grabbed his wrist, and squeezed tight, forcing the biker to drop the knife. Mike gasped. A sharp pain shot through his wrist, and his knees nearly buckled. Jason tightened his grip until Mike understood. He was completely helpless. "This is what it feels like to be powerless," Jason said. "Now imagine what my dog felt." Mike said nothing. Jason stared at him for another moment, then let go of his wrist and stepped back. The knife was still on the ground between them, but Mike didn't dare reach for it. His gang, the same people who had laughed with him earlier, now looked at him with doubt. Their fearless leader had been knocked down twice, and now he stood there, not knowing what to do next. Buddy, the very dog Mike had kicked, slowly walked over to Jason and sat beside him. The dog looked at Mike with calm, intelligent eyes. Mike swallowed hard. The silence was unbearable. Part of him wanted to do something, to prove he wasn't weak. But another part of him, the one that valued staying in one piece, finally spoke louder. "Let's go," he muttered without looking at his gang. One by one, the bikers backed away toward their motorcycles. But just as Mike reached his bike, Jason spoke one last time. "Next time, think before trying to prove how tough you are." With a loud roar, the bikers started their engines. The sound echoed through the street, but it wasn't the strong, confident noise they had arrived with. This time, it sounded like defeat. As the rumble of motorcycles faded into the distance, a sense of peace finally returned to the little town. The townspeople began to smile and whisper to each other about what had just happened. Frank, the cafe owner, walked up to Jason, wiping his hands on his apron. "Well, that was quite a show." Jason leaned down and patted Buddy on the head. The dog wagged his tail happily. Storm stood alert beside them, still watching the road. A small boy named Timmy came up, looking at Jason with curiosity. "Is your dog okay?" Jason crouched down to check his dog. "Yeah, he's fine." "Good, he's really nice." Jason smiled and stood up, glancing around. "I think I could go for another cup of tea." "On the house," said Frank. "After what you just did, you've earned it." The town sheriff, an older man with sharp eyes, approached Jason. "Mr. Statham," he said quietly, "thank you for not hurting that thug too badly. That gang's been giving us trouble for a long time." Jason nodded and headed back toward the cafe, his dogs following close behind. For the people of that town, it was a moment they'd never forget. Days passed, and the town quickly returned to its peaceful life. Frank still laughed every time someone mentioned the incident. "I've seen a lot of tough guys come through here," he'd say, shaking his head. but I've never seen anyone handle something like that with such style. He didn't even break a sweat. Local kids kept telling the story to their friends, waving their arms excitedly. And then he moved so fast, the biker didn't even know what hit him. Mike and his gang never came back. The town peacefully enjoyed its quiet days. The bikers had learned an important lesson. Some people just aren't worth messing with. One afternoon, the loud sound of an approaching motorcycle made a few people glance around nervously. But this time, it was just a lone traveler passing through. The townspeople had learned something valuable. Not all bikers were troublemakers, and not all quiet people were weak. Some carried great strength that didn't need to be shown unless it was truly necessary. And somewhere out there, Jason Statham and his loyal dogs continued their journey, leaving behind a story the town would tell and retell for years to come.